Quick note before the video starts, I just watched some of the footage as I was starting to edit and realized that I have one of the most deadpan stares and ways of talking for at least a good chunk of the first half of the video. So in case you think I'm a goddamn psychopath, just want to let you know that before this I worked on the notes for the video for about 3 hours straight. And also yesterday I spent the entire day alone working, so my social skills might have become a little rusty, which is why I seem the way I do in this video. The majority of people you meet nowadays avoid conflict like the plague. And I'm not talking about avoidable conflict. What I mean by avoidable conflict is a situation where it's beneficial to avoid it, or at the very least, there's no real use in engaging in the conflict, and so by not doing that, at least you're saving time. But there are also conflicts that can't be avoided, or rather, if you avoid them, there will be negative effects. If this is the case, the avoidance of conflict is no longer purpose-driven. It no longer serves you, it no longer gives you any benefit. It has become its own end. People will avoid conflict to avoid conflict, right? They just don't wish to engage in it. And you might ask, well, what's wrong with this? Right? Conflict is unpleasant. I'm a nice person. I want people to be happy. Why should I actively try to engage in conflict? Well, what if you're facing conflict with a bad person? Or maybe just someone making a bad choice? This conflict might make more people happy than unhappy, because the choice this person is about to make, the things they say, or the things they do, may actually harm more people. So by, confronting this person, you might actually cause more happiness. Fine, you might say. I want to be happy. Forget other people. I just want to be happy. I want a peaceful life without conflict. But do you really? Let's start by talking about your character versus your impulses. What I'm about to talk about is mainly directed towards men, because women usually make their decisions a little differently. Let's get into it. Your character is comprised of your dreams, goals, and ambitions, intertwined with your morals/personal code. I'm not a huge fan of morals in the traditional sense, and in my opinion, your personal code should partly be based on your dreams and goals, but that's a topic for another video. I'm going to talk about that in the future. To get back to the point, your character can and should change slightly over time, but very gradually and through conscious development. Generally speaking, much of your character should remain intact as you progress through life. Obviously, your perspective on things is going to change. Also, you are ideally going to achieve goals and dreams, I hope. So, of course, your character will change. But the idea is that you consciously work on your character, ideally in quiet moments where you have the time to reflect on things, and in real-world situations where things are going on, your character is kind of a constant. It remains intact, and it's basically a foundation for how you act. This is what we call integrity, essentially. Your impulses, on the other hand, spring from base human instincts interacting with the world around you. Essentially, there are certain biological urges hardwired into us, and some of these are, we all share. Some of these are specific to you because you are part of a certain sex, you are part of a certain age group, right? Obviously, there are hormonal changes throughout your life, and obviously, there are big differences between the sexes when it comes to biology and hormones, etc. But generally speaking, every single person has certain biological urges hardwired into them. And this is something we all have in common, even though the specific urges might vary. These urges react to things you see, hear, smell, taste, feel, and that causes an impulse to do something. A classic example of this would be smelling tasty food and wanting to get tasty food. Classic impulse. Maybe even wanting to get the specific tasty food you are smelling. Impulses and character together form your personality. The interaction between the two results in all of your larger and smaller habits. And those are who people who meet you repeatedly generally perceive you to be. Obviously, if you're striving to become a better version of yourself, your character should largely drive decision-making, not your impulses. The impressive, respectable male characters in movies who you look up to probably aren't the ones acting like children. They're probably the guys who make tough decisions. And, this is a very general statement. This could be a knight, a character in some fantasy setting. This could be a high school movie character, a pirate, a sci-fi character. This is very general. But what many of these characters that you probably look up to have in common is that they make tough choices, tough decisions. Decisions that require bravery because they are risky, but allow this character to protect their loved ones or advance towards their goal. Or decisions which come at a cost for this character's well-being or immediate happiness. So it's not even that the decision is just risky, there's a clear cost involved. But again, making this decision and paying this price allows them to achieve something beyond that, something greater. This is actually the reason why, in many cases, we have a lot of respect for good villains. And I think what most people mean by a good villain is a villain who is an evil guy or is a guy with an evil plan, but the way he goes about trying to achieve that plan, trying to achieve his evil goal, is very respectable. He makes tough choices. He makes sacrifices. He's dedicated. He takes risks, Impulsive decision-making, on the other hand, is what literal babies do. While this is a very easy state to be in when it comes to investing effort, because you're just floating through life, essentially, you're basically an animal, you just do what feels right in the moment, it does not allow you any real agency when it comes to your own future or that of the world. You are, in essence, quite literally an NPC. True agency comes with character. Character is, in essence, as I kind of mentioned before, a constant in your decision-making that you can take with you from situation to situation. Working on your character in quiet moments by reflecting, so looking back at the things you've experienced, the choices you've made in the past, and what has resulted from them, and perhaps why you have made certain decisions, why you had the urge to do certain things, drawing conclusions from that, so finding out, why did I do these things? What am I actually striving for? What should my purpose be? Who do I want to be? And, what is my passion? What am I actually going for with this? And then thinking ahead and saying, okay, this is who I want to be. This is what I want to achieve. How do I get there? This allows for high quality decisions that may completely go against your impulses. Because you might have the impulse to do something in a situation, but because you've built your character, because you've thought about what would be the sensible thing to do in this situation, you are able to make a decision that goes against the impulse you initially have in the situation. Going back to the example about fast food, right? Maybe you have built your character, maybe an aspect of your character is eating healthy or achieving certain fitness goals. And because you've actually made this very clear in your mind, because this is part of your purpose, it is very easy, or comparatively easy, for you to not engage in this impulse to get that tasty food. Because you know it's not going to help you achieve your goals. And so even though it might be satisfying short term, it will not help you or even harm you in the long term. This can even cause you to not have impulses at all, or to not feel them as strongly. Because the part of your character influencing certain habits is more dominant in your mind than the instinctual urge causing them. So in the case of what I just talked about, maybe you have thought about this so intensely that the urge to get that fast food is not even that strong, because you're kind of disgusted by the thought of eating that fast food and then feeling kind of greasy and embarrassed and regretting it afterwards. So the impulse itself is actually weaker, because this part of your character is so present in your mind. However, it's still important to be honest. Impulses exist. They will never not exist. And conscious decisions should take this into account if you want to succeed even more. So you should keep in mind that you will have certain impulses. They might be weaker, they might be stronger, depending on a situation. But the smart thing to do is to take this into consideration and just try to plan around it. It's also important to note that instinct does not equal impulses. Instinct, intuition, in and of itself, is not bad. In fact, it's very valuable. But it should not be applied directly to logical decisions with long-term consequences, which is what impulses are. Impulses are the application of instinct to a decision immediately. You are making a decision based on essentially your animal nature, if you will. Instead, you should take instincts into account when building your character in private. So, in a calm situation where you are actually consciously thinking about things, take your instincts into account when thinking about stuff long term, or when considering how a certain aspect of your character is going to feel in real life. Is this a choice that's going to be really hard for me? Is it going to be really hard for me to stick to my diet if I go into this certain setting? So you should use your instinct while actually planning ahead to then be able to avoid situations where your impulses might overpower your character. Also, you should use your instinct when assessing unknown situations with lots of unclear variables. Because in a situation where lots of factors are unknown, there is no purely logical decision that you can possibly make, since there are lots of things that would influence your decision that you don't know. Or maybe you could possibly know them, but it would take ages to find all of this out. To give you an example of this, if you're playing chess and you are at a certain level of pattern recognition, say, you cannot outthink every single move your opponent might make in reaction to every single move you can now make, because there's a clock. You're on a clock, so time is of the essence, which is the case in almost every situation in life because, well, your time in general is limited on this earth, but also in many situations, more specifically, your time is limited. And so you have to make a choice. And in the chess example, you could check like a couple of things, right? You might say, oh, I could move this piece, and then, check like a couple of lines and realize, this might not be the best move. But ultimately, you also kind of have to use your intuition. At the end of the day, it's not possible for you to consider every single possibility of what the other person might do, unless you're in like an end game with a very limited number of pieces. So this is a situation where applying your instinct, applying your intuition would be valuable. Let's get back to standing your ground. We've established that making choices based on impulses might, in some cases, feel good in the moment. However, since it doesn't allow for any real agency, there is no way of securing a happy future by doing this. And in fact, many people who live their lives very impulse-driven will end up taking a lot of drugs, playing video games all day or watching TV, just moping around and essentially not doing much with their life, and usually being very miserable in this situation because they aren't achieving any of the things they, actually dream of doing. Making choices based on the character you have built yourself is better because it's going to advance you towards your purpose and or have you act in line with your own morals long term. So you're not going to regret not trying to achieve the things you want, and you're also not going to regret not acting in the way you think you should be. Avoiding conflict with someone who is challenging your character by standing in the way of your purpose or acting immorally according to what you believe is right is impulsive. By virtue of what you stand for, you should actively disagree with or confront this person. Now, that is all well and good, but maybe all of this is still a little theoretical for your taste. You might be thinking, dude, what the hell are you talking about? What is all of this philosophical mumbo jumbo? To illustrate my points, let's get into some real, clearly negative aspects of not standing your ground when really you should. Starting with number 1, you're going to regret not acting. One of the most commonplace pieces of wisdom floating around on the internet, in self-help books, motivational speakers' talks, is the fact that generally what people regret most in life are the things they didn't do. And not having stood up to someone, not having stood your ground when it comes to what you believe in, is most certainly a big one. Because, in all honesty, you know what you should have done. You genuinely disagreed with what this person said or did, but didn't act on that, which will build up regret. And in case of someone close to you, oftentimes resentment. This is where we get into the next point. Number 2, just because you avoid conflict doesn't mean others will. This is closely related to number 1. One of the biggest reasons you might end up regretting avoiding a conflict is others will still disagree with or confront you about things. This is very comparable to people pleasers, who will compulsively try to please people all the time, but become more and more resentful over time because they aren't getting a return on this behavior, until eventually they snap. Since people pleasers don't act the way they do based on character, they haven't consciously sat down gone through their experiences, reflected on everything they have done so far in life, and decided, this is my moral code. I want to actively, consciously help people and do the best I can because this is what I think is right. But instead, they act the way they do based on the expectation, if I'm ultra nice to everyone, everyone should be ultra nice to me, right? Because of this, they get mad after a while because they aren't fulfilling their own purpose, aren't following their dreams or fighting for their moral code. And despite acting really nice towards others, other people won't really help them achieve those things either. Because why would they? They are getting nice behavior from you, nice things, acts of service, whatever it may be, for free. And generally speaking, it's not another person's job to advance you in life. In essence, people-pleasing is the same as constantly avoiding conflict here. In the end, following your impulses in avoiding conflict and bending over backwards for others result in the same thing. Regret about not following your own purpose. Because others clearly do, and they got further than you ever did. In fact, people-pleasing can lead to others expecting you to do things for them. And in the same vein, not standing up for yourself might lead to people challenging your character even more. Which leads into number 3, being a pushover will become your personality. While this might sound harsh, it is the truth. Remember, both your character and your impulses influence the way you act and thus your habits. That behavior is what comprises your personality, who others perceive you to be. If you constantly avoid conflict, people will perceive this as a part of who you are and expect you to do so. Some will think you essentially have no character at all, and thus unintentionally act against your beliefs. Even though they might like you, because you never stand up for your purpose, they couldn't respect it if they really wanted to, or at least were willing to, because they don't even perceive you as having any purpose. You might be their favorite NPC, but you are without a shadow of a doubt a complete and utter side character in their life. Others will actively impose their will on you because they know you won't contest their statements or actions. Even if by some miracle they knew about your dreams or morals, which is highly unlikely if you never really stand up for them, they aren't required to respect them. And why would they? Why should they? Since you yourself obviously don't respect them enough to stand up for yourself. And even when you do, you don't stand your ground, but immediately back down when challenged. If you do confront them about something at some point, they may even get angry or blame you because you never said anything leading up to this point, which is where we get to number 4. It only gets harder. First of all, as with all things, reluctance and anxiety will only build up the longer you wait. Avoiding something again and again will already make it harder to do without anyone else involved, because you're pushing it back further and further, so this thing in your mind becomes bigger and bigger, more and more significant. Because why have you pushed it back in the past? Because it's something you're uncomfortable with, something that scares you, something that makes you nervous. And so the fact that you are pushing it back actually makes this thing seem bigger and bigger. But on top of this, since other people expect you to kiss their ass, or at least not say anything when they speak or act, when you do challenge their words or actions and stand your ground on the matter, there's a decent chance they'll react very badly. And there are two main reasons for this. Firstly, you aren't acting the way you should. People generally like to have an idea of what others are like because that makes life easier. And in principle, there's nothing wrong with this. This is the basis for trust, essentially. You want to be able to, generally speaking, trust in someone's character, trust in the general type of choices they would make, because this allows you to rely on them. This is the reason why most folks, even tough guys like me, are very uneasy around junkies. Their behavior is very hard to predict. Since you have been a little bitch ever since this person met you, you suddenly acting against them can almost feel like betrayal. In contrast, if you set clear boundaries at the beginning of any kind of relationship and consistently stand up for your beliefs, the other person will at the very least respect you and know what to expect. They don't have to like you, they don't have to agree with everything you say, with all of your beliefs, but they will, at the very least, respect you. Secondly, you may be easily intimidated and drop the issue. This is probably subconscious for most people, conscious for some, but the idea is the same. Since you are a pushover and avoid conflict like crazy, escalating the situation might make you back down. If you are already uncomfortable with regular disagreements, someone getting angry should be 1,000 times worse, right? And it may actually work because you feel like you've seriously hurt this person's feelings, or like the relationship is in danger. In reality, you're just standing up for yourself, which is totally normal, and any relationship in which that's not possible should not be a relationship in the first place. If you had been in the habit of doing this since meeting the person, they wouldn't dare reacting like this, getting angry at you for standing up for what you believe in. This is one of the reasons why many people struggle with challenging family members on things. This person has known you since you were a child, meaning since you actually were a little bitch. And that often means that they don't respect the current, more mature you enough as a result, because they associate you as a person significantly with you in younger years. They spend a long period of time with you as a little bitch. To summarize, challenging people on statements, actions, any type of choice really that actively conflicts with your character is a must if you want to be an actual individual and get anywhere in life. I'm not saying you should pick random fights. Again, avoid conflicts that serve no purpose and only waste your time, or even worse, have immediate negative effects on you. But standing up to someone and drawing clear lines if this is a person you will have to interact with regularly, or if this situation is going to have negative effects on you immediately, again. This is even important on smaller matters, to set an unmistakable precedent. If you let people mess with you, they're only going to continue doing so. So now that I'm finished recording this feels like it probably was a very lengthy video, at least very in-depth. I actually thought about splitting it up into 2 videos, but decided to shorten the section on character instead. I didn't want to take it out completely and, split this up into 2 totally separate parts, because the general concepts of character and impulses I feel like were very important to this video. But I'm going to make a more detailed video on building character and creating your own moral code or code of conduct in general in the future. This video This video was kind of a follow-up to the video on responsibility, which I'm going to link up here somewhere. In that video, I talked about taking responsibility for things that happen to you, and I feel like one of the most common things is people resenting others or, carrying with them a lot of hatred for other people who mistreated them in the past, but kind of avoiding thinking about the fact that they allowed it to happen because they didn't stand up for themselves. And by not standing up for yourself or cutting someone out of your life who's not treating you well, you are essentially responsible for being a victim of their bad behavior. I'm not saying, you should not hold people accountable for acting badly, but what I am saying is you're not really going to get anywhere in life if you don't take responsibility for those types of things, because that's the only way you can deal with them. And because this is something I see many people struggle with in this specific regard, because the default agenda nowadays is being nice, and conflict is not perceived as nice, I wanted to talk about this specifically. That being said, I'm starting to catch myself tripping over words and the like, so we should finish this video, I guess. I've actually been at it for about 4 hours since I got up. Didn't really take much of a break except to get myself a cup of tea. And I was working on the notes for this video yesterday already. But because it's a very deep video and I really wanted to nail this topic or get it as right as felt right, if you will, I did a lot of rewriting. I changed a lot of stuff. Again, I took some stuff out with the character part. So I'm really, my brain is a little fried right now. And yeah, despite this, I hope you enjoyed yourselves, or because of the effort I put in, I hope you enjoyed yourself. If you did, if you gained any insight, if you gained any knowledge, if this was helpful to you, if you feel like you benefited, I can't even speak anymore, from this video, be sure to leave a like. I would very much appreciate that. And if you have any questions regarding this topic, if you want to know about specific things, if something came into your mind as you watched this video, you remembered something, you want to ask about something specific that this might apply to, go ahead and leave a comment. If you have suggestions for future topics you want me to talk about, both in regards to, personal philosophy, character, this type of video, as well as training or general health, things like nutrition, go ahead and leave your suggestion in the comments as well. And I would also very much appreciate if you subscribe to the channel, if you feel like, you gain knowledge, you gain value from these videos. I would be happy to have you along for the journey, have you along for the ride as I, work on these videos and try to put what I've experienced and learned through research out there. I would also very much appreciate if you share this video. I've actually not said this before in any of the other videos, but sharing these videos with your friends, anyone really who you think could benefit from them, would help me greatly and might help this person, so that would be great as well. Yeah, that being said, I'm out of steam here, so yeah. I forgot to tell you to activate the notification bell, but I guess, yeah, go ahead and do it if you feel like it. And most importantly, remember what I said in this video. Go and stand up for what you believe in, because no one else is going to do it for you.